Dan Blocker didn't have much time for his family when he was on Bonanza. Dirk, his son, says it that way now. It was honest, a little sad, and shockingly raw after all these years. Blocker played Hoss Cartwright, the huge guy with the even greater heart who always rode into disaster with a silly grin and a moral compass that was stronger than steel. But behind that kind face was a dad who didn't have time to breathe, let alone sit down with his kids for dinner. Dirk claims that in the 1960s, people would gather around their dad when they walked through a fairground or ballpark. Hoss wasn't just a persona, he was a national treasure. Kids wanted to hug him, adults wanted to shake his hand, and everyone wanted to have a picture with him. Dan handled it with grace, too. He'd smile, sign, pose, and then move on. But that continual attention hurt when it came to his own kids. He added that if you could take your family to Disneyland and enjoy the rides without being swarmed, you were lucky. Those times were few and far between for him. He and his wife, Dolphia, and their 4 kids lived in the San Fernando Valley. 2 sons and 2 girls. They added on to the house after Bonanza took off. A game room, more bedrooms, and even a pool. But even then, the outer world always seemed to get in. Dan might have gone to Beverly Hills, where all the other major actors lived. They told him to do so, the agents and producers. They said the schools up there are superior. But Dan saw through it. Better schools, which are more like more expensive institutions and have more elite parents. Dan didn't want that kind of existence. He told a reporter, "If the schools in the valley are good enough for regular kids, they're good enough for mine." He really meant it. Blocker was 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighed about 300 pounds, but he wasn't attempting to be bigger than life. He only wanted to be a father, one who taught his kids right from wrong and literally put them to bed by 8. Dan and Dolphia had a plan. If a kid wasn't sleeping by 8, they couldn't go to the 8 o'clock club for a whole week. It may sound ridiculous, but it worked. The kids wanted to fit in. They enjoyed the schedule. Dolphia was the one who made the rules, and Dan allowed her. He was the teddy bear, the cuddly one. He even said their kids were a really good group. But the point is, your kids see that you're Hoss Cartwright to the whole world. They see you fight off thieves on TV. They witness you tumble from horses, get shot in the shoulder, and wrestle grown men like it's nothing. It doesn't matter to them if it's fake. Dan told them it was only acting, and they believed him. He told her it wasn't real, but it didn't stop one of his children from crying during a very emotional episode. He got shot, but it was only a scratch. She hurried over to him, checked his head, and asked if he wanted an aspirin. That was how strong the link was. They didn't see the actor. From a poor background, Ora Shack Blocker and Mary Arizona Blocker were his parents. They owned a small grocery shop in O'Donnell, Texas. This area doesn't scream future TV star, but Dan was different. He was different, even as a child. He was always taller than most kids his age, and by the time he was an adult, he was a giant. 300 pounds, broad shoulders, and hands as big as dinner plates. But here's what people don't understand. He was also nice and sweet, the kind of guy who could stop a fight without yelling. In 1940, he proceeded to the Texas Military Institute. After that, he went back and forth between Hardin-Simmons University and Sewell-Ross State Teachers College. That's where he got into the swing of things. Drama and football. Yes, there is drama. He used to be a bouncer at a violent bar, and now he acts and plays. He obtained his degree in speech and drama from Sewell-Ross. That mix of physical strength and acting ability made him stand out. You couldn't miss him, and once he started chatting, you didn't want to stop. But life wasn't easy. Blocker joined the U.S. Army after college and fought in the Korean War. He wasn't just doing paperwork or peeling potatoes. He was in the middle of it. Infantry, on the front lines, with boots in the mud. He was a sergeant in the Twon Battalion, 179th Infantry Regiment's F Company. The person fought in genuine wars, got hurt, and got a Purple Heart. He also won a lot of medals. The National Defense Service Medal, the Korean Service Medal with 2 Bronze Stars, the Combat Infantryman Insignia and more. He wasn't acting like a hero. He really was one. He didn't go to Hollywood right soon once he got back from Korea. He taught English and drama first in Sonora, Texas, then in Carlsbad, New Mexico, and last in California. He wasn't just a replacement teacher. He was a real teacher. Think about how your sixth-grade teacher might become a cowboy on TV. That's how down-to-earth he was. Dan didn't really move to Los Angeles until 1958. He was going to go to UCLA for school. Maybe go to additional graduate school. Hollywood, on the other hand, had other ideas. His first big break came when he got a silly part in a Three Stooges short called Outer Space Jitters. He was called Don Blocker and played a bad guy in space. It wasn't flashy, but it opened doors. It just kept getting worse from there. He was in Gunsmoke, Colt Point 45, Sheriff of Cochise, The Rifleman, and even Zorro. Most of the time, he plays a tough guy or a bouncer at a club, always quiet, always strong. He played a thief in the movie Have Gun Will Travel. He played the same character over and over again in Cimarron City. People began to notice bit by little. But everything changed in 1959. And this is where we stop, right at the edge. Dan received the part that would change his life forever. One that would make him famous, a TV star, and finally rip up his family's private life. But before we discuss about the casting and what really transpired on the set of Bonanza, the friendships, the fights, and the secrets that Dirk has finally decided to tell, we need to go back to the exact time Dan walked onto the stage in costume, looked around, and knew that things would never be the same again. One name, Hoss Cartwright, starts it all. That's the part. That's what you leave behind. NBC is trying something fresh with a family western. Yes, they want action, but they also want heart. A dad and his 3 boys live on the huge Ponderosa Ranch in Nevada. Every son has to contribute something special to the table. Hoss needed someone who was huge, strong, and easy to love. Someone who could break up a bar, fight with a bear hug, but still make kids laugh by just raising an eyebrow. He looked like he could fight a horse, but he would also cry if he saw a puppy with a limp. That person was Dan Blocker. He enters into the audition at 6 and over 300 pounds. But he's neither loud or harsh. He's calm and friendly. His voice is mild, yet his grip is strong. That difference? It strikes the casting team like lightning. They've seen tough people. They've met nice guys. But both in one? That's not common. That's a house. And just like that, Dan gets the part. He appears in 415 episodes over the next 13 years, which is one of the largest numbers for any cast member. From 1959 to 1972, Bonanza was on the air, became the second longest running Western on NBC at the time. When it's at its best, it gets tens of millions of viewers every week. People don't simply watch Hoss, they wait for him. When he comes, they cheer. When he stumbles over his words, they laugh. They have faith in him. You might not realize this, but Dan didn't act like a cowboy while he played Hoss. He had a guiding notion, an ancient saying that stayed with him. He thought about being kind every time he put on Hoss's boots, about doing good while you can, because he said that we only travel this way once. And people, especially kids, thought so. Dan got letters over the years, hundreds of them. One from a boy said, "I wish you were my dad." That really hurt him. It wasn't about being famous. It wasn't about the ratings. It was about what Hoss stood for: love, safety, and loyalty. Dan kept that letter. It made every long shoot, every missed family dinner, seems a little more worth it. But Dan doesn't slow down, even as the show gets more popular. He has a job outside of Bonanza as well. He plays a lead role in Come Blow Your Horn with Frank Sinatra in 1963, and again in 1968 in Lady and Cement. He portrays a tough character this time, which is really different from Hoss, and it works. He can be scary when he wants to be. Later, Stanley Kubrick thinks of casting him as Major T.J. King Kong in Dr. Strangelove. That's the part that ends up riding the atomic bomb in the last scene. Dan never takes the part, though. His agent says no before he even gets a chance to read it. In the end, Slim Pickens does it. But film historians still wonder what would have happened if Blocker had said yes. Dan still has a lot of work to do. He is the main character of Something for a Lonely Man in 1968. He plays a blacksmith named John Killebrew, who builds a new village from the ground up. Fans appreciate the story because it has so much heart. Then, in 1970, he changes things up again with the Cock-Eyed Cowboys of Calico County. This time, it's funny. He plays a shy single man who is cute but awkward. And the actors? Full of famous people, including Jack Elam, Mickey Rooney, and Jim Backus. But here is the bit that truly shocks people. Dan Blocker isn't only an actor, he's also developing a brand. He buys part of a new restaurant franchise called Bonanza Steakhouse in 1963. The catch? Dan plays Hoss. He's in the advertising. He comes to openings, and yeah, he shakes hands, signs menus, and takes pictures of everyone. The company is growing quickly. Hoss is someone others trust. If Hoss thinks the steak is good, you should believe him. Dan doesn't do it by himself, either. His son Dirk joins him on TV for the first time in 1964. It's a car ad, but it's a major deal for the Blocker family. Dirk subsequently remembers that this is one of his first memories of his dad's job. An advertisement, not the TV set or the ranch. They were both cheerful and working together. That was how strong the link was. You might think that kind of accomplishment would make a man cocky, but not Dan. He keeps down to earth. He is still humble. He never forgets where he comes from. He meets others on set, such a young director named Robert Altman. They got along well. Years later, Altman wants Dan to say farewell for good. He wants him to play Roger Wade, but something bad happens before they start filming. Dan dies without warning. Sterling Hayden gets the part. The last cut of the movie is dedicated to Dan Blocker. Bonanza is getting close to its last seasons by now. The audience is evolving. TV is different now. But Dan, he still comes to work, still makes time for every fan, still cracks jokes between takes, and still goes home to his wife and kids in the valley every night. But beneath the fame, the steakhouse, and the success, the pressure starts to mount. People start to worry about Dan's health. He's always been huge, and now that weight is starting to catch up with him. He keeps working and smiling, but people who are close to him start to worry. Dirk thinks back to those last years, the long shoots, and the calm times at home. Those memories are soon to become the main focus. So what was life truly like for the Blockers when the cameras weren't rolling? And what eventually broke the man who admirers thought could never be broken? Dan Blocker had a life full of purpose, conviction, and quiet love for his family. Even though he always wore a cowboy hat and smiled. He wasn't a famous TV star when the cameras weren't rolling. He was a man with strong morals who was also a father and a husband. He married Dolphia Parker, the woman he met at Sul Ross State University. They raised 4 kids together in Los Angeles. They have 2 boys, David and Dirk, and 2 daughters, Dana Lynn and Deborah Lee. And all of them felt the weight of Dan's huge presence. David Blocker went on to become a renowned producer in Hollywood. He received an Emmy in 1998 for making Don King.